Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special podcast, football special. We did our first one last year, and we thought we have to honour the tradition and do it again before the new season. So in front of us, we've got a sheet of last year's results that we did okay, but the red means we got it very wrong, but that's the fun of it. And when we come back next year, we'll probably be in a similar kind of thing. Maybe maybe not as bad, but that is what the fun is. So today I'm joined with Ivan and James. Last year we was joined with Martin, but he can't join us today. But yeah, so we're going to predict the Premier League table. So so James is in his Chelsea kit. Oh dear, but so yeah, let's start at the bottom. So 20th place. So let's start with you, Ivan. Who have you put in 20th?
Personally, I think that this team has a lot of potential. I was really happy to see them win the promotion playoffs, but because aside from one key signing that they have a very young and inexperienced team, I sadly have to put Sunderland in my 20th spot.
Sunderland. Yeah, Sunderland are a very just newly team. They were already unexpected to go up. I think I didn't think they'd win the playoffs. What about you, James? Who have you said?
Hi everyone. Yes, so in terms of 20th in the league, I have to echo Ivan's point there. I do think, unfortunately for Sunderland, there is going to be quite a large gap in the quality between Sunderland and the teams that are going to be above them. Um, I do think there is one team that did come up from the Championship last season who I do think has a fighting chance of staying up. We'll get to that a little bit later, but I do think that other than that one signing, which was, I believe, Granit Xhaka, who is a very solid midfielder and Premier League proven, I don't think it's going to be enough. I think that Sunderland are going to struggle. I don't think that they are going to quite hit the same lows as perhaps Southampton did, like with in terms of points. I think that they will still come up with a few surprises. I'm very interested to see the Tyne and Wear derby happen again this year. But I have also put Sunderland in 20th.
Okay, okay, yeah. So
For me, oh, sorry, Mason. I'll add that had they been able to keep Joe Bellingham, which was always a big ask, and you'd have a midfield partnership of Bellingham and Xhaka, I'd give them a fighting chance to squeak into 17th. But it was almost inevitable that Bellingham was going to follow Jude's footsteps into Dortmund, and they've made a lot of signings in trying to replace them, but there's just not a lot of Premier League experience.
yeah, I do agree. So there's already a twist, boys. So I've not gone for Sunderland. Um, I have gone for another team that got promoted. And they are Burnley. So I know they signed Kyle Walker. And I don't think Broja is a very impressive signing. Who they signed? I think it was either confirmed today or yesterday. So yeah, I feel like out of all the teams, I put them bottom because they got Scott Park. He's not very good in the Premier League. So yeah, I think out them and Burnley, Sunderland, sorry, could be go down. So yeah, I've put Burnley, but as it is a unanimous decision, Sunderland from our joint table are bottom.
Yeah, so two out of three votes looks like Sunderland's going to take 20th, but I think 19th is probably where I would have Burnley. So I'm happy to talk about them here. So we've seen Burnley come up and down a lot over the last decade, and a lot of people are concerned because last time we saw them, especially even the time before that, or whoever Scott Parker was managing, if it wasn't Burnley, we know that he struggled his last time out in the Premier League. However, I think that with Scott Parker, I think that he's had enough experience within the championship and the Premier League to know that you can't pull a Vincent Company and force your team to play attractive football and then think it's going to work. Now, it worked for Vincent Company in a sense because he got a job at Bayern Munich, but I think that he will hopefully have learned from his past mistakes a little bit, but it's tough to have faith in Burnley the last few seasons when we just know them to be a yo-yo club.
Yeah, that's right. So, you're saying Burnley for 19th. What about you, James?
I also got 19th for Burnley. I think that although I don't actually think they've made the worst signings in the world, I think that they've made a very safe bet going for a lot of Premier League um, players that know the league well, that are used to the physicality. I think that I know today they've just signed Leslie Iheanacho from Chelsea, who
Yeah,
in the Chelsea fan base we actually rated quite highly as a backup midfielder. He's very physical. He gets stuck in. He's a very good number six to have in your team. And I think that that might help them to some degree. But I have to say that Scott Parker, I look at his management and I don't really think he's evolved ever. I think that he's going to be another one of these managers who I think he's done it multiple times with other clubs. I think Fulham might have been one of them, where he will take a club up and take them straight back down again. He just can't get a team to stay in the Premier League. I don't think Burnley are going to be strong enough to compete. And I think very similar to what Ivan said, I think a problem that they're going to have is a lot of these teams, like a bit like Leicester as well, they came into the Premier League and came up with the mentality that they could go toe to toe with all the teams above them. And they need to understand that the gap in quality is usually quite large. And they need to maybe take a leaf out of Sean Dyche's book. They need to learn how to win ugly in these games just to get over because every point counts when you're in that position, when you're in a relegation battle. And I think that that's what they need to do. Burnley hasn't done that for a while, and I think for that reason they are going to unfortunately suffer the same fate. I do like it when Burnley's in the Premier League. I think that they're quite a fun opponent to have, but I think they're going to suffer the same fate.
yeah. I, 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 I think it's boring, isn't it? It's boring when we get these same clubs in the Premier League all the time. Except from Sunderland, you haven't seen Sunderland for a long time. But like the likes of Burnley, it's the same like with Sheffield went down, um, 1 or 2 seasons ago. Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. So I didn't say Burnley, obviously because I put them last. So I said West Ham. And then my reasoning for this is that I'm not the biggest fan of them, but that's not the reasoning for my point. So my point is, I feel like from the kudos, they haven't really invested in it except from I think Callum Wilson. I think they signed, and I don't think they've signed many others. But yeah, I don't know. I think they just like when they signed all those players that year. It might have been season or year before. They they everyone thought they were going to finish like eighth or something like that. They were going to finish in Europe, but they never did. And then they were just hovering over like maybe the bottom half of the table. So I feel like I don't know. I when I made this prediction, I just thought there's no oomph in them, and it might change if they get rid of Graham Potter in the season because I don't think it's going to work out. I think Graham Potter's more suited at an academy club, more like a Brighton or a Brentford. So yeah, I put West Ham there. Um, they might not finish there. I got Ipswich wrong last year. So yeah, I put West Ham there, but as a unanimous decision means Burnley are 19.
We can let you off getting Ipswich wrong last season. You're an Ipswich fan.
Yeah, but
Fair enough. Gotta have
yeah,
optimism.
yeah, but I do think we should have got more points. Right. The 18th, Ivan, who have you put for 18th?
So this is a similar position as what we just talked about West Ham, where they haven't really invested in their team. They underperformed. Their biggest monetary move for West Ham was re-signing a player on loan to Debo. And it's a similar story for the team that I'm nominating for 18th place. Wolverhampton Wanderers. They've lost a lot of players, most notably Cunha and Ait Nouri. And their biggest move so far has been making the Strand Larson signing permanent, which is a big deal. He's now one of their best players without the two players I mentioned that have left. But they've lost more than they've gained, and I think that they're a prime candidate that the other newly promoted teams should be looking as if we're going to have any chance at staying in this division, we have to beat Wolves ideally twice, and they might have a good shot at doing it. So I'm really concerned about Wolves with how much they've lost. Vitor Pereira did a great job taking over mid-season, but he's going to have a big job on his hands this season. So I'll put Wolves out there for 18th.
Yeah, I think they were for any of the teams last year, they were the prime candidate, even with all those players that they had. So even without them, you can just see how what they're going to do. So I'm going to go for. I'm really curious to see James goes for. So I'm going to go for someone else. I didn't put Wolves. I put Brentford, and my reasoning for Brentford was they they've lost so many players, and they even more want to go. So like Wissa. So and I don't know if they've replaced them or not. And but they've got a manager now that hasn't managed really. So yeah, I just feel like it's going to be a really massive drop for Brentford, as like with Thomas Frank as well, losing him to Tottenham. They were probably a mid-table side, potentially even getting into the Conference League. That they had a chance, like nearly last season, they nearly got there. So yeah, I feel like a massive drop for Brentford. I feel this season.
Okay, so for 18th place, there's one team that I have been looking at as a potential relegation candidate for the last 2 to 3 years. And I think that this season is going to be the time where, unfortunately, it's going to happen. And that is also Wolverhampton Wanderers. I think that they have been on a slippery slope for quite a long time now. I mean, I had Wolves as a potential candidate last year to go down, and I think that losing Ait Nouri and Mateus Cunha is going to be massive. They are arguably their two biggest players, other than Strand Larson, who they've just made permanent. And I've not been impressed with their management for quite a while either. I think that they need a bit of a shake-up from top to bottom. And I think that unfortunately it's going to be their time. I think Wolves are in trouble this year, and I think that that's going to benefit one of the newly promoted sides coming up because I just think that I don't see Wolves going up anytime soon. I think that this is going to be a case of they are very steadily on the decline, and I think it's going to come to the point where this season they will get relegated.
Yeah, yeah,
I think it's a far cry from when they first came up during this current spell that they've been in the Premier League and they had Ruben Navas and all the exciting Portuguese talent. And they're in a similar position where their Midlands rivals Aston Villa are at now as one of the bigger disruptors of the Big Six. But it is tough for a club like Wolves to continue to replenish talent as they keep selling talent or players move on. So something like this was inevitable for a club of Wolverhampton's size to stay up in the Premier League this long is commendable, but it's just been a matter of how long could they keep this up. We've seen this with Sunderland, we've seen this with Wigan, we've seen this with a lot of teams over the Premier League era that eventually it catches up to you.
Yeah, I think unfortunately with Wolves is that they had the right idea. They obviously had a very good scouting network with over in Portugal, but when you're a club of that size, that's very hard to sustain. And I do think that 1 year, maybe in the over the next few years, I think there is another club that might have the same fate. And I think Brighton will be next to suffer that same decline, I think, within the next maybe 2 to 3 years' time. I think they're okay for the moment, but with the whole scouting network, you can only, you're not always going to be able to replenish those players. I mean, you're going to get a whole handful that come through at one time. Sometimes you're not going to get as many. And I think, like you said, Ivan, I think in this case it's caught up with Wolves.
Yeah, they were they, they went up a bit like it was like a Newcastle moment when they got all that those owners and the money. You thought maybe Wolves could be really up there. They got like you say, you got all this Portuguese talent, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like their manager is okay, but it's just I feel like other teams are going to catch them. But yeah, so that means Wolves as a joint decision is relegated for this prediction. If we come back next year, we hopefully all right. Well, I say hopefully. I did not say Wolves. I'm just saying to anyone watching, I did not say Wolves. So yeah, so 17th. So I'll go first because my vote don't matter because I put Sunderland. So I don't know. I just feel like Sunderland are going to be. I don't know. I feel like they could stay up. I feel like two relegation teams could stay up this year. Um, and yeah, I think so Sunderland have done really well. They've done something that no team done last year when going up. They opted the broader route, and I feel like that's maybe a bit better because like speaking of Ipswich, they went for a lot of championship teams and they got their championship players ready for the championship. So yeah,
So with Sunderland taken, why don't you provide your vote? It could be a team you mentioned that's still on the board, like a Brentford or a West Ham, or even a new team.
okay, I'll say I'll say Brentford then.
Okay, so we alluded to Brentford a bit earlier. They finished 10th last season, a very commendable performance, but a lot of that was attributed to great players like Brian Mbema, who are no longer at the club, and especially to Thomas Frank, who is now managing Tottenham. So there's going to be a huge transition. Keith Andrews, the former Ireland international, Republic of Ireland, to be specific, uh, he is largely inexperienced, and there's going to be a drop off. It's just a question of how much of a drop off. And I want to say that, 17th could be there, but I can't ignore the history recently, the last couple seasons, where it's been very difficult for promoted sides to stay up. So if we're going to predict a promoted side to stay up, I think maybe 17th, even though it's literally the last spot before that drop zone is as high as I had it initially. I'm going to go with Leeds United. And the reason why I have the most faith in Leeds United out of the promoted teams is they've accumulated and kept a lot of borderline, if not potentially Premier League talent during their spell in the EFL Championship. And I think narrowly missing out on promotion the season before to Southampton might have given them more time to develop some cohesion. They still have a good core of that group together, and some of them do have Premier League experience. And the biggest question, though, similar to Scott Parker, is can Daniel Farke uh, acclimate to this spell in the Premier League because he's had his struggles before with Norwich City. So we've got one vote for Brentford from Mason and one vote from Leeds United from myself. And let's hear from James.
Okay, so I'm going to apologize in advance to Mason because I feel like me, myself, and Ivan have like trumped his votes almost every time. But 17th is also where I put Leeds United. Leeds United are the one club that I think have the best chance of staying up. I don't think that the Leeds United hierarchy are going to get relegated without a fight. I think that if it's going wrong halfway through the season, they will be the ones that intervene. I think that they know that they've got Premier League standard players in their squad. Um, and players that in fact played in the Premier League with Leeds United not so long ago when they were there. Um, they are in a much better situation financially now than they were before. I believe that they are. Am I correct in thinking that their owners are the same guys that own the San Francisco 49ers? I,
Correct.
yeah. I think that they are now at the start of perhaps an uphill trajectory, and I think that they have the best chance of not only just coming up into the Premier League but staying in it for an extended period of time. I think that I do think that Leeds United are going to be the ones that finish 17th place. I'm quite a big fan of their squad and their players. Not too sure what business they've done this summer, mind. I haven't really kept tabs on that, but I haven't heard of any outgoings from Leeds United that are key players to them. So I think their core group that have been together for the last 2 or 3 years is going to help get them through.
I can talk a little bit about their transfer business. So the players that they've let go, I don't think they're going to miss too much. Rasmus Christensen, Junior Firpo, probably the biggest one, but he's replaceable, and they have replaced him very well with Gabriel Goodmanson out of Lille for 10 million pounds, and then Maximilian Wober has been loaned out to Werder Bremen. And they brought in Jacob Bijol. That's going to be a good center back signing from Udinese and Longstaff from Newcastle, and perhaps very key, Ilya Meslier has been known to be mistake prone the last few seasons. If they don't believe in him to start right away, or if he has a shaky patch to start the Premier League campaign, they have a capable replacement, and potentially he could be the starter for their opening fixture, Lucas Perry from Lyon for 15 million.
Yeah, it's yeah. So Leeds wins by unanimous.
Sorry,
So
Mason.
yeah, I haven't won one yet, and it's not gonna. So yeah, you got to laugh. In 16th, I put Leeds. So, so I'll let James go, and whoever I want to be there, I'll say. All right. So, James, who did you say for 16th?
Right, okay. I have actually put a team in 16th that you have mentioned already, Mason. 16th is where I think West Ham are going to finish. I think that I don't really think they're going to make any progress from this season. I think losing Mohamed Kudus is going to be huge. Um, they have still got plenty of quality in terms of personnel within their squad. My only concern with West Ham is Graham Potter. He's he's kind of been given a second chance in the Premier League after obviously his bad spell with us at Chelsea. I think going to West Ham was the sort of right level for him. I think he had um, plenty of talent within the squad to work with to get West Ham into a more safe position in the Premier League, perhaps. I think I think that Graham Potter may be one of the first managers that gets sacked this season. I think that West Ham aren't going to. I mean, I think it's going to go down a similar route with Julian Lopetegui last season. I think that if West Ham find themselves in the danger zone, I think they're going to pull the trigger on Graham Potter and find someone else. And I think that that's going to be a key reason as to why they do stay up, because I think they will find a manager who is able to get a good run of results with the players that they've got. Because I don't actually think personnel wise they have a bad squad. There's a lot of players in there that other Premier League teams will be quite jealous of. Jared Bowen is obviously one we can talk about. Edson Alvarez is a very good midfielder, I believe. Is Ward-Prowse still there?
Yes, he's
Yeah,
still
you got
rocking the number 8. He'll be their free kick specialist, one of the best in Premier League.
exactly, and I think even like Fulkrug, their striker, he was pretty solid for Dortmund when he was with them. I think someone can get some good results out of that side. So I think that they will. I think that they will stay up, but on the basis that they change direction early in the season.
Yeah, yeah, I hope they go down though.
I'll also
So,
say West Ham, they were my 16th place as well. And there's a few problem areas. While it is a good squad, their goalkeeping battle will be between Alphonse Areola, who they didn't have complete faith in last season. Lucas Fabianski was their starter for parts of the previous season. And then West Fotheringham, which he was average at best for Sheffield United last time they were in the Premier League, and he's gotten scooped up here. I do think that they had a good piece of business getting Kyle Walker-Peters on a free. If your name is Kyle Walker, you're a pretty solid right back. So there you go. But some of the pieces, it just hasn't seemed to have worked out. There's a little bit of a cloud looming over Lucas Paqueta's head. Crescencio Somerville hasn't stayed healthy, so I
yeah,
think it kind of balances out that they'll probably have some issues. I think I'm happy with 16th.
yeah. I don't know what's happened to Summerfield because the Championship was really good for Leeds, and then how hardly seen him in the Premier League.
Side note, why have they made Jared Bowen a striker on Fantasy Premier League?
Yeah, I don't. His price is ridiculous on there, and everyone's going for him for some reason. Um, so 15th place. My vote, my vote goes to Wolves. Don't worry, guys. This is the last one, and then after it, hopefully, it's a bit better. So yeah, I've gone for Wolves. Obviously, my vote don't count. So, Ivan, what have you gone for 15th?
I think we'll stick with some teams that we've talked about. We're expecting a bit of a drop off, and the lack of coaching experience, let alone Premier League experience, is going to be a bit of a question mark. For all we know, he could be the next Andoni Areola that he surprises everyone. But for now, I think we have to keep expectations a little bit low, and I think Brentford 15th.
For 15th, James.
I promise I'm not copying you, Ivan, but I also put Brentford 15th. And for very much the same reason. I don't think the drop off is going to be so spectacular that they end up in a relegation battle, or at least in a danger zone. I think that if the manager is smart, he will try and not change too much too soon. I think when you lose players like Embuemo, um, I think Norgard is left as well. You've got the potential for Wissa leaving. I think if Wissa goes as well, that would be catastrophic for them. I think if they can hang on to Wissa, I think that's fine because I think ultimately you're still going to get a decent spine in that team. I think that what Brentford have got to do until they um, rebuild in those positions, they've just got to sort of keep the status quo going a little bit. Don't change too much. Don't change the style too much. I think that they've just got to stick to what they know this season, weather the storm, and then over the next 12 months, they can look to replace and rebuild from those key players that they lost. So I've also put Brentford in 15, a bit of a drop off from where they were, but I don't think it's going to be, it would have to be catastrophic for them to go down. It would have to be a spectacular drop off. I don't think it will be that extreme. I think that 15th will be where they finish.
Yeah, the biggest concern as well is the leadership void where you don't just lose your manager, you lose your captain. Christian Norgard was signed by Arsenal, and he's going to be great depth for them for the off European nights and cup games. But that if you kept Norgard and changed manager, you would at least have him to kind of walk through Keith Andrews and help him understand a little bit about the system, the club culture. But I think Keith Andrews was also internal as well, so I think he has some understanding there. But Yeah,
Yes.
it's going to be an interesting situation.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I think that they need to go down the approach of just not changing their style too much because their new manager appointment was internal. So maybe what the idea is, or at least the way I'm seeing it, is that they will just continue as they are, have a bit of a transition season, and then next year,
Mhm.
then flip the switch. I think that that's what will happen.
Yeah, they have a lot of players to replace. Really. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to how Brentford do this season. Who knows? They might do a Leicester, and I mean win the league, not get demoted. So yeah, so I think we're on 14 now. Um, yeah, so we're at a stage where everyone I've already said has been said now, so I'm not going to go first for that reason. Um, so Ivan, how have you put on 14?
I've been debating between two clubs. One also falls into the category of they've lost two and potentially three very key players, all in the same area of the pitch to big clubs. And I'm kind of having faith in their manager and their replacements to fill those voids. And then also another club that they're starting to build something under their current manager in his second spell at that club, but I feel like I haven't seen much to put them out of this range. For 14th place, I think I'll stick with the ladder and go with Everton.
Okay, Everton. Um, I'm gonna say one now because I'm interested who James says. So I've gone for a team that have done quite well really since they got back into the Premier League. They've when they got up, most people probably thought they'd go straight back down straight away, but they've built on a manager that hadn't particularly before his time at Fulham haven't done too well at in the Premier League. So I'm gonna go with Fulham because I feel like they've done really well last year, but I feel like they could just part busting and go back a little bit this year. So yeah, going for Fulham.
That's not where I thought you were going with that. I thought you were going to say Bournemouth.
I thought that as well.
No, not Bournemouth, not yet.
Okay, right. I'm going to announce my one in a different way. Because I feel like it's getting to a point where it's a little bit suspicious. So I'm just going to prove that I wrote this out before we came. Oh God, I can't see it because of the background. But I have in fact put Everton as 14th. Um,
Great minds think alike.
yeah. Um, sorry, I'm just putting it back on my tripod. Now, yeah, the reason why I went with Everton is um I think that they are reaching a point now where they are going to slowly start to build a bit of momentum. I think that David Moyes is more than a good enough manager. And he's proven it with pretty much with most clubs he's been at, to be honest. The only exception really has been Manchester United, but then even Jose Mourinho didn't particularly succeed there. Um, Now, with Everton, I think again that they've got very strong personnel, a very strong core of players. They are defensively strong. The midfielders pretty strong. You've even got, I mean, even like their forwards. I mean, like Beto is not the worst striker in the world. I think that there's enough there to be at a point where, the sort of the 13th, 14th, 15th mark is the sort of point where you're not in a relegation battle, but you're also not really sort of challenging for a European place. It's that awkward in between spot, and I think that that's where Everton are going to end up. I think that they will look to push a bit further on next year. Um, there's a lot of big things happening with that club. They're moving into their new stadium this year. The fans are going to be very excited about that, and hopefully they will want a strong. They will have a strong start in their new stadium at Bramley Moore Dock. But ultimately, I think that's where they're going to finish. I think that the teams above them will just put them to the post, but we'll get to that a little bit later.
They have a strong defensive core that gives me faith that Everton, if they perform to their standard, shouldn't be too concerned about relegation. And I think the key for them is that they've held on to the likes of Jordan Pickford, for example, that he's at a stage in his career where he's still getting England call-ups and he's not hasn't had to make a big move to do so. So he's happy to stay at Everton. That's perfect for Everton to have him for at least a few more good years, at least. Goalkeepers well into their 30s, they can still perform at a high level. And then other solid defensive pieces such as Keane, Tarkowski, Mikolenko, which should be more established there because they're not going to run the ancient fullback pairing of Coleman and Young too much because Ashley Young has left to Ipswich, by the way. We managed to work Ipswich into this Premier League 25-26 podcast.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good old 40-year-old young. Um,
It feels
Actually
like
old.
it feels like Ashley Young and Seamus Coleman have been around forever. Like I'm
Yes,
pretty sure I grew up watching those footballers.
I certainly have as well. Yeah. But most exciting is going to be some of their attacking options. You mentioned Beto, James, and he had a really good purple patch near the end of the season. We'll see if he can become a more consistent striker. But I think I'm really excited to see Tierno Barry because Villarreal is a team that I follow closely in La Liga, and he was very impactful for them as they qualified, if not for Champions League, definitely for Europe. So him, along with Iliman and Dye, is going to be very helpful for Everton to kind of break the mold that they've lost some of their attacking punch post the Lukaku era.
yeah, they're trying to sign someone from Southampton. That young kid. Forgot his name.
Soleimana,
Um, no, some
Nibbling,
19. Yeah, yeah, him. Yeah, him. I think they've bidded twice on him, but they want like 45 million for him.
and they also got Dewsbury Hall too, so that'll be a nice pickup from Chelsea.
Yeah, yeah, it'd be good for him to start playing again.
I will
Uh,
say, there's a part of me that's actually quite sad he's left Chelsea. Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall was he came into Chelsea knowing he was going to be second choice, and he never kicked up a fuss about it ever. He was always professional. Whenever he did feature, particularly in the Conference League and the other cup games, he was actually a very solid midfielder to have, and I think that to be a first choice midfielder in a team like Everton is ideal for him. I think that he will. I think he'll blow up there. I think he'll do really well.
yeah, I think he'll do good. He reminds me a little bit of like Ross Barkley in a way. So yeah, I think he'll do good there. Um, so by unanimous decision, Everton get 14th place. So 13th. So yeah, so 13th. But I went with Everton, 13th. Um, yeah, Ivan, who have you gone for?
So Fulham's time will come in maybe a spot or two, but I did flip between Everton and Bournemouth. So with Everton in 14th, I'm gonna nominate Bournemouth for 13th. I know it's a broken record, but we can't overlook Kirkez leaving, Huijsen leaving, potentially Zabarni as well. To lose three of your starters in defense when you're a club that you broke through into the top half last season, but you're still very much a small club by Premier League standards, with all due respect, that's scary for Bournemouth. So we have to see what happens, but I have enough faith in Andoni Iraola and the talent they still have in their squad that they can still finish above quite a few sides to hopefully not worry about relegation. But I think this is probably the last team that I could see a cataclysmic possibility where they get relegated this season, but probably not yet.
That's quite interesting, actually. I'll come to Bournemouth very soon as well, but for now, this is where I've actually put Fulham. I do think that Fulham's personnel is very, very good. Again, I'm not quite sure. I'd have to double check the business that they've done so far in the transfer window. I'm just having a flick through now, but I'm not overly convinced on Marco Silva as a manager. they seem to Fulham seems to be one of those sides that will will have a bit of a bad run and then out of nowhere have a couple of shock results. That seems to be like how Fulham operate at the moment. I'm I'm just having a look to see what business they've done. I mean, there's not really been anything significant.
Minimal.
It's been
They've
very,
only
very
brought in a
minimal.
backup goalkeeper. Sorry to speak over you, but yeah,
No, it's
aside
fine.
from bringing in the number two behind Leno, they haven't really, but they haven't lost too many players either. But there
Yeah.
are still some positions where I'm worried about their depth. Like if
Yes.
Jimenez were to miss time, are you gonna be able to start Muniz for a 10-game stretch or something like that?
Mm. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it could work in their favor that there hasn't been too much business because it means that, you still got a lot of cohesion in the squad. Everyone kind of knows where they're at. They know what where everyone's going to be. And with the same manager there, that's always quite helpful as well. But I think they needed more in order to kick on and sort of push in towards the top half of the table. So I think that this is where Fulham are going to end up, and it's only because I think that the other two um, clubs that I've put above them, which we'll get to in a moment, have better managers and will
Yeah.
are better equipped to navigate their teams out of a situation where they've lost a lot of players, but they'll still make it work. We'll come to that in a bit. But I've put Fulham in 13th in the league.
Yeah, and of course, as the representative American of this podcast, I have to hope for the best for full America with Anthony Robinson continuing the tradition of the likes of McBride, Bocanegra, Dempsey, etc.
Yeah.
He is a solid. I'm actually quite surprised that no one's gone in for him this summer. I thought that when he exploded onto the scene last season, I thought that immediately I thought he's going to go to Liverpool or maybe like someone like Manchester City. I thought this is going to be a player that is going to be sought after by the top clubs. It might yet still happen, and maybe like a year or two down the line, but he is definitely a huge asset for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe with Trent Alexander-Arnold off to Real Madrid, that he may have the most assists by a defender. We'll see if Anthony Jedi Robinson can kick on. I sure hope so, especially because the World Cup is coming up this season, and with USA co-hosting with Canada and Mexico, Anthony Robinson will be one of the most important players for the US men's national team.
Mm. So I'd say Fulham 13th by unanimous decision. Um, so we are on to 12th now. So Ivan, who have you put 12th?
Let's see. I'm trying to see if I can talk myself into maybe holding off on Bournemouth for one more spot, but when we look at the remaining options, either side of the South slash Palace derby, you have Brighton who continue to have a promising and talented team. Yeah, Palace who just came off of a FA Cup win and are usually the kings of mid-table in the Premier League. So I can't really talk myself into putting them above force either. So I'm going to say Bournemouth for 12th.
Okay. So I'm gonna say I said 12th. So naturally, I'll let James say. Who'd you say, James?
You sure you want me to go first?
Yeah, because I'll go third. That's fine.
All right, mate. Okay, so for 12th, this is where I've actually put Crystal Palace. Because I do think that they are potentially at risk of losing a couple of key players. I'm talking Eze and Mark Guehi. But if I was a Palace fan, I would be trusting Oliver Glasner to find a solution to that and to coach the team through this period where they are perhaps going to be lacking in a little bit of quality. I think that he is a very smart manager, and I think that he will be able to find the solution. I think that um, he's very flexible. I think that he will be able to adapt to it better than a lot of other managers would in the Premier League. I mean, this is a manager. who has won so many cups in his career, and not just the FA Cup last season. I think a lot of people forget he also won the Europa League with Frankfurt. This is a very, very intelligent manager. I think Crystal Palace could lose Eze and Mark Guehi and still come out of it pretty unscathed, as long as they keep him in charge.
I I don't know if they would lose both. I feel like they would probably keep one of the two. I don't think they would allow both of them to go. And I think out of the two, I think Eze is probably the most likely option. Out of those two. But yeah, I agree with you there. I think Palace are in the Conference League as long with Nottingham Forest. I think they're both in the Conference League, so I think either one of them will probably win it anyway. So I think Palace will probably. I know it's weird to say Palace probably have more chance than Nottingham Forest, but I'd put money on Palace to win instead of Forest if out the two clubs. So in 12th, I've said one of the teams you guys have said for once. So I said I haven't said Crystal Palace yet because I put them a bit higher. I feel like they're going to have a better season. So I said Bournemouth. I put Bournemouth there because I just feel like the other clubs are going to think higher. So yeah, Bournemouth for 12th.
We talked a lot about who Bournemouth lost, but I do want to give some credit to the players that they currently have and they brought in because I do think that they are the type of players that I think can be bought into the system. And I think they have a very strong goalkeeping room as well. I think whether you go with Neto or maybe their new signing Petrovic to start match day one, I think that Petrovic has a chance to surprise some people. Yet another Chelsea alumni there for us to talk about, and a former MLS player for me to talk about. I do think that Marco Senesi, depending on how the whole defense shakeup shakes out, could be very important for Bournemouth. Ideally, if they somehow keep Zabarni, like how Morgan Gibbs White managed to stay in Nottingham Forest, then I still think that a partnership of Senesi and Zabarni could be good enough for the Premier League. And their main reinforcement was thankfully a defensive player, Adrian Truffert from Ron. So that's going to be very helpful. And then, of course, going forward with Dango Atara, Antoine Semenyo, and then Evan Nielsen, and then Tyler Adams holding down the fort. I still think there's a strong structure there. So I'm happy where Bournemouth is.
Yeah, me too. Um, so yeah, so 11th now. It's gonna be interesting from this point on because they could go in any position really, except from probably the top three. So James, who have you gone for 11th?
This is probably a good time for me to jump in actually, because I actually put Bournemouth at 11th. Um, because although I do think that losing three key defenders in the same transfer window can be catastrophic, because I'm operating on the basis that Zubani is currently being linked with Paris Saint-Germain, if I'm not mistaken. If they lose the three of them, then that's going to be very challenging. Um, but again, I'm going to go back to the management. I think that they will. There's still plenty of time in the window. They may well yet acquire another centre back if that happens. But obviously, Senesi we know is a top option for at centre back and very well trusted. Georgia Petrovic, obviously, I can speak about as a Chelsea fan as well. He was our first choice goalkeeper for about 6 months, uh, a couple of seasons ago when we had Mauricio Pochettino, and he was one of those goalkeepers where he was his only little weakness is that he quite often used to get beat on his near post a lot. I don't know if he's got that out of his game now, but if I'm not mistaken, I think he statistically had the most saves in League One last season with Strasbourg. And a lot of us Chelsea fans actually wanted him to return from loan and to become the number one goalkeeper. I think that Georgia Petrovic is an upgrade on who they had last season in goal, which was Kepa Arrizabalaga. But ultimately, I think a lot of this is going to ride on whether they acquire another centre back in the transfer window or they do keep Zubani. Um, if they keep him or acquire another centre back, I think they're going to be absolutely fine. Kirkes and Hoyson, of course, is a big loss, but I think that Brighton will navigate their way through it. And I think that I'm talking Brighton, no, it's Bournemouth. Um, Brighton's coming on the list, but not yet. Bournemouth is a team that I think have a very good structure, and I think that they, under their current management, will be absolutely fine. I think that they will be quite safely in that mid-table spot.
Okay.
Agreed. And would it be safe to say that in the absence of an available Bournemouth, that for your 11th place vote, you'll raise Palace again?
To be honest, yeah, I think Palace and Bournemouth will be sort of competing very much in the same position in the league. I have put Palace at 12th at the moment, but because I think that Bournemouth, with their management and their structure, is better equipped um, when it comes to losing key players like that. But so far, I put Bournemouth 11th and Palace 12th.
Yeah, I put Palace in 11th as well.
Make it unanimous then. Palace in 11th. Yet another U.S. men's national team player, Chris Richards, had a phenomenal season for Palace, and I am glad that he's had such a strong partnership with Mark Gehi. And I think that what could help Gehi and or Eze, whoever ends up staying with Palace for this year, is that they know that they're going to be consistent starters. They're going to be the stars of this team, and they're going to get many opportunities if they can continue to play at a high level and help push Palace maybe into 10th, maybe into ninth, and maybe another cup run, that there's without a doubt that they should be on the plane for England should they qualify, of course, likely they will for the World Cup. So they don't necessarily need to push to a move to one of the bigger London clubs or to Liverpool or whoever to cement their spot in England, like maybe some fringe players looking for a spot in that 26 player roster would.
Yeah, the Palace are there by unanimous decision. So, James, what have you put for 10th?
So for 10th, this is where I've actually put Brighton. Um, Again, I think I've actually been quite impressed with the new management. You're going to have to help me with his name. I can't quite remember him, but he was a very, very young manager. He came from, I think, the Bundesliga a year ago, and he's actually steered the ship very well for Brighton. They've still got a very, very good squad. I think they've held on to most of their key players. That's it. Fabian Hutzler, I think that's the way that it's pronounced.
What's it?
Um, I apologize in advance if I've butchered that. But yeah, I mean, I look at Brighton's outgoings, and I don't think that there's. I mean, you've got João Pedro obviously coming to Chelsea, which I'll talk about a bit later as well. But other than that, I don't think there's anyone else there that I think that they are going to miss. Evan Ferguson didn't really um, hit the ground running in the end, um, so I don't think there's anybody else other than João Pedro. I don't think there's anyone there that they can't replace. So I think that they will just sort of again be in that mid-table, not really, neither really progress or really drop off. I think that that's kind of going to be their position. So I've put them in 10th.
Okay. Ivan?
Yeah, among Brighton's outgoings, the other maybe key players they're losing, Simon Adingra, sorry, 21 million to Sunderland. He'll have to have a great season for Sunderland to stay up, but I think that Brighton have so many wingers and attackers that I think they'll be fine. And Pervis Estupiñán to Milan for 17 million. I think that they probably sold him at his peak, the Ecuadorian international. So I think that they made shrewd business in their outgoings and their incomings. But I think maybe we'll have a chance to talk about Brighton a bit later. If not, I'm wrong. But I'm gonna put Nottingham Forest in 10th because While admittedly I didn't factor that too much into where I put Palace in the table, I do think that having to accommodate Europe means that they may have to end up winning the Conference League if they want Europe the following season. So with Nottingham Forest, what an incredible season that they had, without a doubt. Espirito Santo, fantastic job. Matt Sells, incredible goalkeeper that, if not for Thibaut Courtois, he would get a lot more opportunities for Belgium. Their defense, led by Nikola Milinkovic and Ola Aina, phenomenal. And most impressively, their attacking unit, the likes of Callum Hudson-Odoi, Chris Wood, and Morgan Gibbs-White, are all still at the club despite losing Anthony Elanga to Newcastle. But I do think that they're going to be stretched. And those players that I mentioned, I think that they may end up playing 40, maybe 50 games this season if they don't get maybe a few more bodies in, which is hard to say about Nottingham Forest because usually the problem is they had too many players, but now they're going to need more once again to accommodate for Europe. So
Yeah.
I think that it wouldn't surprise me if Forest repeated the trick, but I think that maybe other team scouts have figured them out a little bit more this season too. So I'm thinking 10th, but I'm looking forward to Mason's vote.
Yeah. So I the thing I think with Brighton, the thing between these two clubs, Brighton and Forest, you've got to think of Brighton got Europe all, and with their players, that I think it would be very. They have a very similar finish to last year, but I think Nottingham Forest are going to drop off. Like Brentford will probably drop off, but not as bad. I feel like they had a really good season last year, Nottingham Forest, but I don't think it will be repeated. They'll still be up there, but just around the mid-table place. So I feel like Ivan said, that they haven't lost too many players, Alanga, but they brought in players. So yeah, I feel like they're going to focus on the Conference League as well. If they, so yeah, I don't know if they'll win it. I do think one of the English clubs will. I hope one. I like to see an English club win it anyway, because I think mostly, I think other than one campaign, the English club has won it. Um, I think that might have been in Tottenham. So, but yeah, I have gone for Nottingham Forest.
Right, there we have it. Two out of three votes there.
So we have in ninth now. We've got ninth place now. So I'll start this time because I don't think I've started. So I'll go for Brighton. Um, for a lot of the reasons James said before. And yeah, I feel like Brighton could even get higher. I feel like they could, but yeah, I feel like just other teams above them are better. So yeah, so ninth place for Brighton. James, what have you gone for?
Okay. Well, I'll say who I was going to put in this position, and then I'll give it that there because it'll probably be quite obvious. But um, ninth is where I put Nottingham Forest. I think that although they're going to have the Conference League to compete with as well as the Premier League, I think that the way that they play, like their sort of style, isn't perhaps as physically demanding as like maybe the way that Glasner adopts with Crystal Palace, perhaps. That's kind of the way that I see it. I think that they're very conservative with the way that they play their football, and I think that they can find a way to be able to balance both. And I'm quite impressed with, although they've lost Alanga, and I can't remember if they lost anyone else that was significant. They've managed to hang on to Gibbs White. I'm quite impressed with one particular signing which they made, and that was Igor Jesus from Botafogo. And I think he will be a quite a valuable acquisition for them. So that's who I was going to put in ninth, but on the basis, because I believe we put them as the 10th place side, didn't we?
Yeah,
Um, I will happily use Brighton again as the ninth place.
right. But you, Ivan, what do you say?
I think we're going to make it unanimous for Brighton. So one fun storyline to follow with Brighton is that they still have James Milner. He's still getting there in his very late 30s. But one record that he's after, I think he is, let's see. He has 638 Premier League appearances. He trails 15 behind Gareth Barry. So, can he squeeze out 16 appearances, about half a season with Brighton? We'll see. Even if it's just late subs, possibly. But they have a glut of talent in that midfield position. You can see from that list there that you got Carlos Balebo, who's probably the biggest star of the bunch, but then you have their local lad, Hinchelwood. You have Inter Miami's Diego Gomez. So there's a lot of options there for Brighton that they may have to sort out who their best team is, but they are spoiled for choice. They brought in the Greek forward there that I would struggle to pronounce his name to replace Pedro, and they have a strong defensive core with the likes of Van Heck, Lewis Dunk, their captain, Lamptey, and Bart Verbruggen. So I think that they are well equipped to finish in the top half of the table. They may need to go on a big run to qualify for Europe via a league finish, but I wouldn't doubt their abilities to win some silverware, be it one of the two domestic cups. So, yeah, I'm happy for Brighton in ninth.
Okay. So yes, so Brighton have finished there, unanimous. So okay, so this is where things start to get interesting. So James, what have you said for eighth place?
Okay, so eighth place is where I have actually put Manchester United. Now, we'll probably talk about this a little bit later, but I think we absolutely butchered the prediction for Manchester United for last season. But Manchester United, I don't see them being a team that ends up maybe getting like a European place this season, or maybe a Conference League at best. Um, but I don't think that it's going to be as disastrous as it was last season. I think that Ruben Amorim is probably going to really appreciate having being able to have a pre-season. I still think he is a very intelligent manager, and I think that with a little bit of time and given the ability to be able to build and mold his own team, I think he can get something going with them. I don't think it's something that will be enough to challenge for a Champions League position anytime soon, or ultimately the Premier League title. I think that Manchester United are quite a few years away from that, and that's if they go on an upward trajectory. And I think there is a lot going on behind the scenes in that club that we could go on for days about. But
Luke Shaw
I,
did say the aim is to win the title.
Bless your heart, Luke Shaw. Bless your heart.
yeah, exactly. Well, it is also my aim to have Dua Lipa as my girlfriend, but unfortunately, sometimes life isn't fair, you know. Um, Now, with Manchester United, recruitment wise, I don't think it's actually been that bad. I do rate Mateus Cunha as a forward. I know he's not really been brought in to be the main striker at Manchester United. He's kind of been brought in to be a left number 10. Um, but also the acquisition of Brian Mbeumo from Brentford is going to be very exciting to see how he does there. Um, I still think they're missing a midfielder. I
Yeah,
think,
they
I
need a midfielder, a striker, and a goalie, really, don't they? Those three positions.
yeah. I mean, the thing is with the goalkeeper is that obviously they spent quite heavily on Andre Onana. It wasn't so long ago. Um, so I don't think that they'll be able to invest in a top goalkeeper without finding a suitor for Onana first. Um, However, I do think defensively, in terms of personnel, I don't actually think they're bad. I think that is down to the manager as to whether he can get the best out of them. I think personnel wise, they're fine. They've got a midfield problem. I think that, obviously they can't rely on Casemiro forever. Bruno Fernandes is not a number six. He needs to be further up the field. Um, and then you've got Dorgu on the left, who obviously would alternate with I'd imagine Luke Shaw on that left-hand side.
They need Ugarte and Mainu to play up to their potential.
Yeah, that's the thing. Ugarte's been a little bit disappointing. I don't think he's not really managed to adapt to the Premier League. I remember he was a very exciting player at Paris Saint-Germain a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I
Um,
I saw some reviews of United fans about his performance against yesterday in pre-season, and it wasn't
mm.
great. So yeah, I feel like they need to use Mainu more. Um, yeah, and I don't even think Luke Shaw play that much. I feel like you got like Heaven and that other young left back that they signed. I think I'd rather play them.
I think the thing with Manchester United, and it's a problem that they've had for a while, is that they need to start managing out some of the players that Ruben Amorim isn't keen to keep or isn't going to be a part of the future project. I think they need to start being a bit more brutal with their transfer activity. I think that they've been either unable to offload a lot of players that they don't want, or just quite simply clinging on to players in the hope that they're going to have a turnaround and then they can flip them. And I just don't think it's going to work. Um, they've got a lot
Agreed.
of they've got a lot of players that they need to offload.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They are a team that really could benefit with a total clean slate, scorch the earth and start again. But
Yeah, instead they can only manage a loan for Marcus Rashford to Barcelona. I don't know why
yeah,
Barcelona were interested in him, other than the fact that realistically, Rashford's probably the best player you can have agreed to be on the bench behind Rafinha and Lamine Yamal. And then Jadon Sancho is still at the club, even though we have no idea what Amorim even considers as his plans. And yeah, there's still the Alejandro Garnacho of it all that could move on to Chelsea
but Anthony as
and
well.
Anthony.
Yeah, there's so many players they need to get rid of. Um, yeah, they need at least three new players. Like if they get Sesko, be funny. But I need the sense that every time Newcastle try to get a player, someone else nicks it from. 'Em.
I would
what
So
I
love
will say,
Sesko because it would allow Cunha and Mbemo to play in their preferred positions. Cunha can play as a striker, but he's not a striker, so that could help. And then you still have Xerxes and Højlund coming off the bench, which is probably a more suited role for them. I mean, they're still young, they can improve, but they've been forced to start a lot of games, and it just hasn't translated into immediate production. And if I hadn't already mentioned it, I agree with Manchester United in eighth. I look at the rest of the big six and then the two main disruptors in Aston Villa and Newcastle United. And even with all the transfer drama with Newcastle United, I think that they still have a really good squad, and I think that when you finish as low as you do, that you would take eighth the following season. So,
yeah,
yeah, we'll see what happens with Tottenham. We're in a similar boat, but I'm happy with Manchester United in eighth. I signed a realistic Manchester United fan, I hope.
yeah. So I've gone for Liverpool. No, I'm joking. Um, I've gone for Man United as well. So I think for the first time, a complete unanimous decision. So yeah, I've gone for Man United for the same reasons. Yeah, and a appalling season last year. But you never know; they might finish lower. But yeah, I think that is realistic to put them there. So seventh place, James. Who have you gone for?
okay, so this is where I've actually put Tottenham. I think that Tottenham are going to benefit of having a manager like Thomas Frank in charge of their squad. I think they do need a little bit of a philosophy change. I think that Ange Postecoglou, although as bold and ambitious he was with his tactics, he left that side very vulnerable in the Premier League. Um, and I think that Thomas Frank is going to offer a more balanced system. I think that they are going to not completely neglect the idea of defending. I don't think that they're going to be pressing as high as the opposition box. Um, I think that although that Sonny has left um, Tottenham in the last couple of days to join LAFC in the MLS,
Yeah,
I think the acquisition of Mohamed Kudus is a very smart one. And the thing with Kudus as well, which a lot of people don't talk about, is that he can play more than one position. He's not just a right winger, he can also fill in with the number 10 role as well. And that is going to be key if since Tottenham have now what it looks like they've failed in their attempt to get Morgan Gibbs-White. So that means you've still got
We've got Palhinha as well this time.
Paulinho. Oh yeah, he's a very strong signing actually. He's that holding midfielder, isn't he?
Yeah.
I wanted him at Chelsea a couple of years ago. I think
The
that's quite
Bayern loan to Tottenham pipeline because they were able to turn Matthias Tell into a permanent transfer. So we'll see if Palhinha works out.
yeah. Well, Paulinho was at Fulham, wasn't he?
Yeah.
A few years ago. He's Premier League proven. I think that that's a very smart acquisition from Tottenham. I can't say I know much about Tell.
Yeah. He
Who's
didn't do
going
very well from this loan, so I don't really get the signing.
Yeah, he strikes me as another forward of a similar profile to maybe like Timo Werner. He's going to be quite pacey. He's probably going to operate out wide quite a lot, but Solanke is still going to be the main man that they have
Yeah.
up top for their striker. But I think Kudus is coming in to be their sort of new marquee danger man. Now that Heung-min Son is out the door.
Yeah, I got to see Gareth Bale play for LAFC the one season he was there when he came to the San Jose Earthquakes, my local MLS club. And who knows, maybe September 13th, I'll be able to do the same when LAFC come to town as well with Heung-min Son. And I'm sure that he's still in great shape to lead Korea Republic into the World Cup and for a few more years beyond that. So I don't think he's too concerned about that aspect of it. But it will be interesting to see a similar transition where you're losing your captain and your manager in the same window, albeit Postecoglou was almost expected that he would be out the door with the league finish, despite the trophy drought ending. But Thomas Frank is a proven leader, and I think that there is, someone like a Christian Romero can take up the captain's armband, and that shouldn't be a problem.
I'll tell you what, if they can hang on to Christian Romero, that'd be huge for them. Because I know there was at one point there was a link with him going to Atletico Madrid, who, by the way, I think would very much suit Diego Simeone's style. But there is another centre back that Tottenham have just signed, and I saw little glimpses of him in some highlights of a pre-season game, and I think he's going to be one to watch, and that is I think his name is Vuskovic.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Um,
12
he
million from Hajduk Split.
he looks like the guy. He's he towers over Christian Romero. Um he's quite a fierce defender and he scored a very good goal from outside the box, I believe, in the pre-season friendly as well. I think that he might be a very exciting defender that Tottenham have got coming through the ranks, and I think that Thomas Frank is going to look to incorporate him coming into next season. So I think that Tottenham have actually made some smart acquisitions. So I know I'm rambling on a bit here, but that's why I've put them in seventh place.
For
Yeah.
me, I agree with what you said, and so much so that on top of hopefully they have better injury luck too, because their entire defense was injured at some point. Archie Gray had to play every single position at defense throughout the first half of the season because I think that they should be relatively healthier, and I trust their situation a little bit more right now than the team that I am voting for seventh. I'm going with Newcastle United in seventh because until the Alexander Isak situation is resolved, there's going to be that cloud looming over St. James's Park. And I think that there is still some concern, some negative energy, the fact that they've been missing out on transfer targets to some Premier League rivals and to other big clubs. That's kind of this part of the transition that Newcastle United, the growing pains that they're experiencing, because they're not competing with Burnley for transfer targets anymore. They're competing with bigger clubs now. And that being said, I think that Newcastle United are strong enough to have a Premier League campaign and to manage the European fixtures. But It's close between Tottenham and Newcastle for me. I give the slight edge to Tottenham to finish above them, so that's where my vote lands with Newcastle. So Mason, you can either decide the vote or maybe the first three-way tie.
So yeah, so I've gone for I've gone for Tottenham. So I've gone for Tottenham because I feel like they've acquired a mid-table manager from Brentford from the last few seasons, from Thomas Frank, and I think Thomas Frank's a really good manager. Um, and but I don't think the target will be um like un huge for them. So yeah, I think even uh, like if they finish seventh, that's a good season for Tottenham because they're in Champions League. Um, and they went from compared to where they finished last season, that's a massive improvement. So and for Man United as well. So if they both finish around this time around this kind of way in the table, it's really good. So yeah, yeah, and I feel like Champions League will have a massive toll on them, especially like with Ivan saying injuries. A lot of their defenders are injury prone, so I don't think Champions League football's going to help. Which is why Man United probably have a benefit. So who knows? It could be the opposite way around. I was debating with that. When I did it, I was going to maybe Man United ahead of Tottenham because of they haven't got European football, but I put it because I think squad wide, I think Tottenham are in a much better place than Man United. That is why I chose it this way around because I think Tottenham have a better squad. So so yeah, Tottenham for me seventh.
All right, so that leaves our top six options in alphabetical order from Arsenal, Aston Villa, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, and Newcastle United.
Okay. So James, who have you gone for sixth place?
Okay, I'm hoping this one will probably make it a bit easier for you guys, but I did actually put Newcastle in sixth place. Um, I think that although they do have that cloud looming over them with Alexander Isak potentially leaving the club this summer, I do think that they have got a very good core in the squad. I rate Eddie Howe as a manager. I think that they will be able to get through and still be one of the two clubs that really challenges to try and get that top four spot. Because I do think that whether it's this summer or perhaps even in January, I do think that Newcastle will end up acquiring a replacement if Isak was to leave. Whether that means getting into a bidding war with Manchester United for Benjamin Sesko, or whether it means we knock on the door to Newcastle and say, "Hey, we've got Nicholas Jackson going spare. Do you want him?" Um, it's. I think that they'll find a solution, and I think that Eddie Howe will find a way to make it work. So I think with the acquisition of Elanga as well coming into the squad, that's going to offer another attacking threat. So you're going to have Elanga on one side, you're going to have Anthony Gordon on the other. That's going to be quite a dangerous front line, especially if they really do keep Isak. I don't think they will. I'm operating on the assumption that they won't, but even then, I've still put Newcastle in sixth place.
Uh, uh,
Their winger situation is better than their strikers for me. Thinking about their European ambitions and having to spread those fixtures around, the next wingers off the bench are Harvey Barnes and Jacob Murphy. So that's incredible depth when you think about it.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, with Isak, even if they keep Isak, now their only other recognized striker is the young and inexperienced William Osula out of Denmark. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they manage all that. And for me, Newcastle United, they have a little bit of a top-heavy squad in certain positions. With their midfield, it's nailed on. Joelinton, Tonali, and Guimaraes, with their only real depth being Willock and Miley there. So I think that they have an interesting situation. They brought in Ramsdale on loan for to back up Nick Pope or maybe compete with Nick Pope, which could be a very stressful environment for two English goalkeepers that might still fancy a spot on the plane. They're competing against each other to potentially be the starter. Most likely it will be one of those two because the other options, they have plenty of them. But Dubravka's linked with a moved away, and he's at best been a backup. And then Vlachodimos has been one of the weirdest and disappointing transfers among goalkeepers in Premier League history. And John Ruddy still playing football. So there you go.
Yeah, John Ruddy's still playing. Um,
Wow. I completely, I'm going to be completely honest. I completely forgot he existed.
yeah, is that Norwich? It's fine.
Yeah.
So I think, right? I think Man United will win the war, like the transfer between. I think they'll beat Newcastle to it because I saw earlier today that they're prepared to put an 80 million bid in. I think Newcastle only did like 67. So I think he'll want to go to Man United because of the stature of the club. And yeah, and I think Newcastle. I honestly think it could go to deadline day. I think this could go to deadline day for Isaac, and unfortunately, especially people who play FPL, maybe take Isaac out of your team at the start because I don't think he's going to be playing until deadline day is over. So I don't think that Isaac will be playing for those first few games. So yeah, I've gone for Newcastle as well because I feel like in the similar for Tottenham, if if we cast our place back to when they were last in the Champions League. They did poorly in the league. They didn't do very well, and I feel like it's going to be the same. But I do think Newcastle will do better in the Champions League this time around because I think the format will support them. So I feel like if they just get a few wins, you only need like maybe three or four wins to actually finish in the top half. So that's fine. So yeah, I think Newcastle will do better this time. The league phase will benefit them, but I don't think it will help their league form. So I feel like they'll be seventh, and for most part of the season they'll probably be in the top 5 or 6, trying to fight for the, and then towards the end they'll fall off. And yeah, I do think they'll get their striker in the end, but I think the sooner, mate, if Man United are going to win this, the sooner they sign Sesko, the better for Newcastle, really, and then they can maybe sign a Ben a Jackson if they have the money for him, but yeah. Yeah, Newcastle for sixth place for me.
I'm
Right.
Mm.
interested in what order you guys are going to put the rest of them in.
So,
I think my order, the top five kind of fell into place for me. And I'm happy to put out there for fifth place. I'm going with Aston Villa.
Yep, I did as well.
yeah. I
I also,
I did too.
yeah. Hey, we've agreed on another one.
They
Um,
are there because they've kept Martinez, even though he was linked with the move away. So that's going to be very helpful for them to still have a World Cup winning goalkeeper. They brought in a backup in Bizot and Zipiquinho Redmond from Feyenoord on a free. So minimal transfers in, but also minimal movement out. They did sign Özcan from Kasımpaşa in the Turkish league, but then they immediately loaned him out. And they decided not to opt for a permanent move for either Rashford or Isco. So they're relying on the same group of players that have helped them rise to prominence as a disruptor to the Big Six these last few seasons. And there's still a lot of room to grow. You look at players like Ian Matson's not quite as peak yet, so he can get even better. Um, I think you still get a few more good years out of John McGinn, who is part of one of the more talented Scottish generations we've seen in recent years. Yuri Tillemans is still, jury's out if he's lived up to the sky high potential he had as a wonder kid and Anderlecht, but he's definitely had a good career for himself. And probably most crucially of all, they've kept Ollie Watkins. So I think that probably not enough in the tank for them to break into the top four. But if anyone can do it, it's Aston Villa. So right here
Yeah.
in fifth place.
Well, if they win the Europa League, which they'll be quite highly favourites, they could even get Champions League anyway. And remember, in fifth place could even potentially be a Champions League spot, depending on how all the English clubs do in Europe. So it's going to be interesting.
I actually think that Aston Villa might even go as far as to prioritise the Europa League this year, because I think what certainly what everybody is expecting of this season is that the top four isn't probably going to be as competitive as it has been over the last few years. There does seem to be a bit of a gap forming between the top four clubs that we're about to speak about and the clubs like Aston Villa, Newcastle, and Tottenham, who we were on about earlier. But having said that, Aston Villa have done a very good job in retaining that core that they've had for the last 2 or 3 years. Um, their defense speaks for itself. Your Ezri Konsa, your Pau Torres, Ian Matson. I know him from Chelsea. Obviously, he's a very promising up and coming left back, and to still have Emi Martinez as your goalkeeper is pretty impressive. I thought after the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, I thought he was going to end up finding a move elsewhere pretty much straight away. So Aston Villa have done a very good job keeping them. My only concern with Villa is, although I'm sure that they've done this with the ambition to recruit, they didn't keep either Rashford or Marco Asensio, and I thought that they did keep at least one of them. I thought that they were very impactful when they joined on loan last season. But you still got very threatening attacking players like Morgan Rogers and Ollie Watkins. I'm sure I've probably missed
Got
a few.
Marlon. He's done really well in pre-season, so
Yeah,
I think he'll start more because
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So it's going to be interesting, but I certainly think that Aston Villa with Unai Emery are probably going to be the one team that is best equipped to really challenge for the top four and be the team to disrupt it. Like you were saying, Ivan, I think that I don't think it's going to be quite as competitive as it was last year, but Aston Villa is still going to be there.
yeah. And you've got to remember Aston Villa's manager's record in Europe as well, especially in the Europa League. So yeah, I would say favourites to win that competition, and I
It's
hope they do
impossible
win it.
not to root for Unai Emery. His first stint in England, he got a lot of criticism, and he's gone on to prove himself everywhere he's been since then, including back in the Premier League with Aston Villa. So incredibly happy for him.
Yeah,
I do think he's a very underrated manager, and I think that um, unfortunately for Arsenal, or fortunately for us rival fans, when he went to Arsenal, I think he joined a club that was still in a bit of a mess. I think he didn't really. It kind of reminded me a bit of when, apologies, Ivan, for saying this, but for when Jose Mourinho went to Man United, I think that he was more held back by the people above him. I think that when he's gone to Aston Villa or when he's been to Sevilla, even Paris Saint-Germain, I think he's been given the chance to really show what he can do. And I think that he's a very underappreciated manager. He's a very intelligent manager, and I think he's on the cusp of some silverware with Aston Villa.
yeah, definitely. So we've entered the top four now. So it's going to be really interesting. So James, who have you gone for in your fourth place?
Okay, so I promise you I haven't had any alcohol before I've said this, but I put Manchester City as the team to finish fourth this year. The reason being is that although Man City are obviously going to always have one of the most dangerous squads in the Premier League, I think for Man City this is going to be a bit of an awkward season for them. They have replaced quite a large amount of their attacking players. They've also brought in Ait Nuri at left back, and you've got the likes of Ryan Shirky coming in as the new number 10 for them. You've got Reinders coming in as a midfielder to operate, I believe, next to Rodri. You've obviously got Kevin De Bruyne leaving. Um, so I think that they will be fine, but I think they're going to be very slow starters. I think it's going to take them a little while to really get the team to click. I'm a very big fan of Marmoush, who they acquired in January. I think that he's sort of come in and filled in the spot that was left when Julian Alvarez went to Atletico Madrid. And Pep Guardiola is obviously one of those managers who will be able to make it work. And I don't think that their spot in the Champions League for the following season is going to be in danger. I think it's going to be quite a comfortable top four finish for them, but I think that they are going to be late developers this season. I think they're going to peak later on. I think it's going to be around about February or March they'll go on a run, but I think before that there's going to be a little bit of turbulence.
Hmm. It's going to be interesting because, yeah, yeah, that's very
This
interesting.
would be their first season without winning the Premier League title since the COVID affected 1920 season. So this is new-ish territory for Pep Guardiola. This is new territory for a lot of the Manchester United players that have been around for the last 5 years. And a player that has been around since before then is no longer with them, as Kevin De Bruyne has moved on to Napoli for free, the end of his contract here. And I am thinking about their big three transfers. So the ones that I expect to play a lot because while Trafford was purchased for a hefty sum, I think Ederson's still going to be the starter for this season. So if you're going to play a lot of Aït-Nouri, Cherki, and Reinders, I think that there's going to be an adjustment period. There usually is for Manchester City signings in their first season. And yeah, there's questions about, how many games Erling Haaland's going to play because he started to look human. Like he started to have a few games in a row where he wasn't scoring, like most strikers in football history. And, the health of Rodri. That being said, I think that Pep Guardiola's track record means that I'm kind of leaning toward them third and Chelsea fourth.
Okay, so that's for me. Um, yeah, so it's really interesting with Manchester City because with De Bruyne, they're playing with Scott McTominay now, and honestly, who would have thought that they would play together, as they are like they were just arch enemies. So now they're going to be playing with each other. Um, so the team I went for was Manchester City, and you might think it's a kind of a shot like James said, but for those reasons that there's a lot of change. I feel like there's the teams above, especially the top two or top three are just a bit ahead of them now, and teams are starting to kind of get into their groove now. But yeah, so I've gone for Manchester City in fourth place.
James, can you tell us a little bit about your reaction as you were watching Chelsea beat PSG in the Club World Cup final? Because I have a feeling we'll be talking about Chelsea a little bit more now.
Okay, right. So do you know what? I've said this to a few people before because there's been a lot of talk about and a lot of controversy, of course, with the new format of the FIFA Club World Cup, and it is a tournament that I've been excited about for quite a long time. It's that tournament that when I was a kid, I sort of dreamt would one day come to fruition. I still think the format needs tweaking. I still think the qualification process needs tweaking. But I think that this is going to be a very, very big tournament going into the future. But talking about that final against Paris Saint-Germain, I went into that game, like many of us, with absolutely zero expectations that Chelsea were going to win. In fact, my approach was like I was thinking of getting CPR at the ready just in case Robert Sanchez gave me a heart attack watching them against Paris Saint-Germain. But you
Goalkeeper of
know,
the tournament.
he ended up goalkeeper of the tournament. But uh, so I guess the best way to describe it is that I was pacing around my flat for a week afterwards. It was probably one of the most mind-blowing performances that I've ever watched as a Chelsea fan, and I've been there and seen Chelsea win the title in the 2004 to 5 season under Jose Mourinho, or in the 09-10 season with Carlo Ancelotti, where we were slapping up teams 7-0 every week, or when we won the Champions League for the first time, or again with Manchester City. Um, it's I actually looked at that performance and thought that is the best performance I've seen from Chelsea probably ever. We didn't just beat the best team in the world, which I think the whole world unanimously agreed was Paris Saint-Germain. We beat them very comfortably. And it was, to go 3-0 up before half time, I was shaking. I was shaking. I could not believe what I was seeing. Ah, it was probably the most satisfying performance I've ever watched as a Chelsea fan. And it's just, it's so satisfying to have a gold badge like this on our shirt for the next 4 years. And I apologize to every rival fan that's listening to this video that sees me at Stamford Bridge over the next few years or anything like that. But we're going to be shameless about it. So
Yeah.
we hope that the next 4 years are as uh let's say, well, we want to inflict a little bit of pain for the next 4 years, but we'll go easy on some of you because you know some of you are decent, you know. But I'm just gonna be giving you some very frequent reminders, like I am today, that we are the world champions.
Yeah, I
So,
look forward to that in our group chat for sure.
so just a question: are Tottenham going to beat PSG this month?
No.
They're not, but we've given them the blueprint.
Okay. So, so that being said, James, who have you gone for third?
Okay, so I decided to put Chelsea at third because I think that this is really the next step up for Chelsea now. I still don't think we're ready to launch a serious title challenge, but I think that we are ready now to kick on and go the next step up. And I think that Manchester City potentially going through a transition year is probably going to work in our favour for that. I think that the acquisitions that we've made haven't really disrupted the main core of our team. And that is something that's going to be key for us. This is now Enzo Maresca's second year. He's implemented his style very well. At points during last season, it was a bit robotic, but I think he's evolved. I think that he has learned to be a little bit more flexible and let the likes of Cole Palmer have a little bit more freedom. So I think we're going to be fine. I think that João Pedro, with his performance being signed mid-tournament in the Club World Cup, was almost faultless. I think that he has very much earned his chance to be the main man at Chelsea. I think Liam Delap, though, is going to offer some serious competition. And I think that Liam Delap is also going to prove to be very key when we play against low block opposition, when we come up against teams like, for example, Nottingham Forest or perhaps Everton, where they have very well organised, disciplined backlines that are going to be hard to disrupt. I think that that's where he's going to be beneficial. I'm very excited to see how Esteval gets eased into the squad. I don't think he's going to be a main starter, but if he can adapt to the Premier League, then with the ability he has, I think he's going to be dangerous. But it does seem to be the case that we are building a two-team system. I think we're going to have very much have a cup team again, and we're going to have a league team again. But obviously, Enzo Maresca loves his rotation, so there's always going to be competition. Um, so I'm very excited to see what we do. I think that you're not going to see too much difference in the way that we play. next season. I think you're going to see a lot of patient play against most opposition, but I think that we are going to start to stabilize a little bit. We'll have one eye on the Champions League, but we have still got quite a young and raw squad. But I think certainly off the back of that Club World Cup victory, which nobody expected, um, they're going to be looking at themselves in the dressing room and they're going to be asking themselves, well, why can't we go for the Champions League? Why can't we go for the Premier League? And I think that this will be a big step up. Um, so that's why I put Chelsea in third.
Yep. And looking at some of their squad moves, because there's always going to be a lot of movement with Chelsea because they keep a big squad. Their current 25-26 Strasbourg class, taking the baton from Vitesse. They've loaned out Mamadou Sarr, Mike Penders, but perhaps the player with the best chance of being involved with Chelsea next season is the young Ecuadorian phenomenon, Kendry Páez. I think that's going to be a great move for him to get plenty of minutes, get his confidence up, grow as a player. He'll hopefully have a good World Cup with Ecuador, and then we'll see what happens there. Maybe a fully Ecuadorian midfield with Caicedo and Paez. But for me, I look at Cole Palmer, and I think that if he can have the goals and assists he contributed in the first half spread out throughout, that's still a very good season. I think that Cole Palmer is definitely the linchpin of that side, and now he's got Joao Pedro to work with. Enzo Fernandez, he's starting to adapt more as more of a number 10, which I think is good. You can have the likes of Lavia and Caicedo in that deeper role. I think they've really figured out the positions. I think there's still some questions that probably persist with Robert Sanchez, but I think he's earned a chance with his Club World Cup run. And Reece James is healthy again, the captain. I think that's all going to contribute to what should be a successful season, third or fourth. We'll go with third here, but yeah, they might not be far away from re-entering the title conversation and winning that in what would be their first in almost a decade if it happens this season, and then a full decade if it happens maybe the season after the one after that.
Yeah, I think Chelsea within these next few years will be back up there trying to challenge. And I think if it's Man City, in a couple seasons' time, if all these teams are really keeping up to patch, you could have a four team just fighting it for the title. Like in this top four, I think it is really that possible. But yeah, I hope Lindelof does really well because obviously we don't have him anymore from Ipswich. Um, we haven't really got a replacement. On its side of things. But yeah, I feel like the money will do us wonders. It's a shame we didn't stay up. We would have got more. But
Before
yeah,
we get into the top two, while we're talking about Ipswich, we can have a brief discussion about the championship. How do you feel about Ipswich's chances of getting promoted back up, maybe in one, 2 seasons?
yeah. I think out of the bottom three who went down, I think we got the most chance. I think Leicester potentially might be getting a points deduction, so I don't think they will. I feel like Southampton. I feel like their new manager. I think my prediction is Ipswich and Southampton top two, and then the playoffs is open. I think like you could get an unknown like Sunderland again. I think Birmingham will be up there for sure. I think they've done really well, and we have just hijacked a signing off there, so it's gonna be interesting because
Birmingham just promoted from League One to make a playoff position?
yeah, I think that their team's that good. And I know friends who support teams in League One. They say Birmingham are different gravy, and I think
It
they'll
has
go
happened
up there.
before, so
Yeah, I don't think Wrexham will. I think Wrexham will be surprising, and they'll just finish. They've had a few places above the relegation zone, so quite lower on the table. But Wrexham surprises us all the time.
slow your
Um,
roll, Deadpool FC, slow your roll.
yeah, so yeah, I hope we go up. I think the team has learned a lot since coming down. And I think by the time we come back up, it might be a bit easier to knowing. Let's hope and Leeds stay up this season. It'll be, maybe take from their footsteps if they stay up. But that being said, I've said Chelsea as well for third. So in second place, has anyone not said Liverpool? Has everyone said Arsenal?
I'm thinking Arsenal. I may
Yeah,
have jumped the gun a little bit there, but I was assuming we're gonna say Arsenal.
yeah. Arsenal then Liverpool. If we've all said
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's the order I put mine in as well. I think Arsenal will close the gap with Gyökeres coming in. I think that is going to be the huge question mark as to whether Arsenal will be a close challenger to Liverpool or not. Can Gyökeres hit the ground running and be that 20 to 30 goals per season striker that Arsenal have been needing for many years now? If he can, I think it will be a title race which goes down probably to the last couple of games. Because really that was the missing piece for Arsenal.
Yeah,
But having said that, I think that Liverpool have actually surprised a lot of people with their acquisitions. Um, and if they add to that by potentially signing Alexander Isak, and they can really they can get it going with a Premier League proven striker like that, then I think that Liverpool are going to very much be regarded as the team to beat. There's still obviously question mark as to whether Florian Wirtz is going to adapt to the Premier League. It's a very it's a very big signing for someone like him. There's going to be a lot of expectation on him. I think he's very much coming in to be Liverpool's next um, big player, probably for when Salah eventually leaves. Um, but I think that they it will be that way around again. I think that Liverpool will improve from how they were last season. And I think that Arsenal with Gyökeres coming in could also step it up as well. I think that this will be a season where the total points tally for the winner is going to be much higher than it was last year. And I think that it's going to be more fierce competition. I think last season, I think we could all agree it was almost a bit of a runaway for Liverpool. I don't think it'll be the same this time.
yeah. Because Arsenal fell off pretty early on. And yeah, I'm sure that new striker at Arsenal will get the ground running. I don't think it will be straight away. We got Man United first. I got a feeling Man United could shock Arsenal and win that. But yeah, like they've already signed a striker from Frankfurt who I don't know much about him. And then if they sign Isaac, it's going to be really interesting. What happens there? Um, but I'll be surprised if that gets done anytime soon. I really want it to get done, but part of me doesn't because I do like a transfer saga going to the last day. It's always nice and something to look forward to. Um,
Hugo Ekitike has been a little bit overshadowed because, of course, the thought was he would either go to Newcastle to potentially compete with Isak or be a two-striker formation, whatever the case may be, or he would be Newcastle's replacement if Isak was to move. So the fact that Liverpool was like, okay, maybe if we can't get Isak, we'll just go ahead and go down the list to Ekitike was an interesting signing. And I do think that he has a lot of potential, 69 million pounds for his transfer fee. Pretty much, other than, third choice goalkeeper and Freddie Woodman, all their ins for Liverpool, all their acquisitions are massive impact signings. That's the big reason why I see them repeating as champions. Frimpong going to be instant impact, especially with no Trent Alexander-Arnold in his way. That chapter closed, probably not in the way that Liverpool fans would have hoped, but it almost felt kind of like he wanted that Real Madrid move at some point and he finally got it. Verts, of course, Kirkez. It's going to be very interesting to see how fast of a start they get to. But even if they don't get to a fast start, they've kept everyone that has been a very key component for them, with the exceptions of Trent Alexander-Arnold, Luis Diaz of Bayern, and sadly, Diogo Jota. That is just devastating and still, like I saw the friendly that Liverpool had with Athletic Bilbao, the moment of silence at the 20th minute. I almost shed tears. Like it's still that much of a gut punch to the heart there.
I I went
And
to Liverpool to see the memorial, and it's so big. It's going on so massive and so long. So many people love the support for Liverpool is really good. It's one of the things I really like about Liverpool, how dedicated they are to like, all their players. And yeah, Jota was one of the first people on the team sheet, so it's so sad to see what happened. But yeah, I think they're going to need another striker regardless of if that goes or not anyway, Liverpool, because I think Darwin Núñez looks to probably go to Saudi. So yeah, that they're going to need that depth, especially. But yeah, so that is all the predictions done, all of our table predictions. Um, I didn't start off too well with like the joint things there, but kind it got up to probably around the mid-table mark. But yeah, this
can
was
I
really fun.
recap the table real quick?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
do you want to do it or do you want me to do it?
I'm happy to do it if that's okay.
Yeah, you do it.
So our relegated sides, we have 20th Sunderland, 19th Burnley, and 18th Wolves. So we're thinking two of the three promoted sides will go back down. We're hoping that that's the change, at least so it's not all three. Otherwise, there's going to be some serious questions asked with the third season in a row. With the relegation battle, clubs we expect that they're going to have to sweat it out. 17th Leeds United, 16th West Ham United, and potentially 15th Brentford. Then for the lower mid-table section, 14th Everton, 13th Fulham, 12th Bournemouth, and 11th, you could consider this perfect mid-table, 10th and 11th, of course, Crystal Palace, and then Nottingham Forest in 10th, approaching upper mid-table, but still missing out on European qualification based on league finish. Brighton in ninth and Manchester United in eighth. Qualifying for European football some capacity. Seventh, Tottenham Hotspur. Sixth, Newcastle United. And fifth, Aston Villa. Rounding our Champions League spots, we've got Manchester City in fourth, perhaps one of our biggest calls of this discussion. Chelsea in third, the perennial runners-up Arsenal, and then to go back-to-back Premier League titles, we picked Liverpool in first.
Yeah, and I think that will be the first time that Liverpool have done that in the new Premier League format. So it's going to be interesting if that happens. Um, it'll be a bit funny. Arsenal I think first season in a row they would finish second as well. So um, it kind of questions maybe the striker wasn't the issue if this happens. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting. But I think yeah. So thanks to everyone for listening and watching. It was really fun. I think the next table predictor will be I reckon when the World Cup next year. I think we all did the Euros. That was really good fun. So the World Cup will be a bit longer because there's more teams. So
We'll be happy to do World Cup draw reaction as well,
yeah,
too, if we want to in December.
yeah,
That would
yeah.
actually be a very good show, actually.
That'll be actually
Yeah.
good. Yeah, yeah. We can kind of discuss the draw and what we think could happen. Um, but yeah, thank you everyone listening and watching, and we'll
Thank
see
you
you.
for having us.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you for listening, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to do that. I hope you enjoy the upcoming season, and yeah, we'll look forward to doing this again.
yeah. Hopefully next
Yep.
time we do a Premier League one, Ipswich are back in it. But yeah, fingers crossed. Thank you everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone. I apologize if I interrupted.